Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
The joint board meeting of the town of Rockingham Select Board, Bells Falls Village, and Sax River Village. We are meeting in the lower theater. There's a Zoom link and also, I believe, a phone link that can be attempted. That being said, I'd like to call the meeting to order. First order of business is to approve the meeting minutes of May 31st. The agenda says June, but it is May. So that was our last meeting. The minutes are in your packet. Entertain the motion to approve, disapprove, or whatever, so we get it on the floor for discussion.
Motion to approve the minutes printed.
We hear a second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of May 31st. Any corrections, deletions, or additions thereto? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters and or pressing matters that will require ratification at a future meeting. I have none, Scott? No, nothing. Report?
That thing I sent you, I don't know if you got a chance to look at it. It came from John Dunbar about some grant money that might be available to help with move forward on.
Bylaws modernization.
Yes, bylaw modernization.
Yeah.
The only thing he said was based upon the closure date, we have to do something soon.
Right.
So maybe tonight, but we haven't had a chance to review any of it.
No, I think, Gary has looked at it briefly, and I think also Chuck looked at it briefly, so we'll come back to you.
Okay.
Try to do.
Thank you.
Yep.
Moving forward, public comments on items not on the agenda, 3 minutes per person. Please state your name. One over there. Let's start with that one.
That's that.
Pat's there.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tim Wessel. I'm from Brattleboro, Vermont, and I've been serving on the Brattleboro Select Board for 5.5 years. I just came to introduce myself. I'm running for state senate here in Windham County, and you might see my name in the news once in a while, for better or for worse, for the last 5.5 years. And I've been vice chair. I've been chair down there. I served as chair during 2020. When we all went to that screen with the Hollywood squares. And I'm just here trying to visit every town and speak to a lot of boards because I'm running as an independent. The reason I'm doing that is I really don't think that the two-party system serves us very well nationally. And locally, we also have a problem because we have a dominant party system that does a lot of group thinking, I think. And on a town board or a select board or trustee board, what we do is we sit and we shed those party labels and we really try to work for the people. What's going to work for the people? Try to move forward in cooperation. So I'm trying to take that kind of spirit, take it to Montpelier of all places, which I don't know if I'm going to be received very well. But there's 30 state senators, as you probably all know, and I think they could use with one independent to do them pretty good. I'd like to be that independent. So I'm going to definitely watch this because I'm really interested in hearing more about what you all care about and the issues that you struggle with here might be similar but different to what we talk about all the time on the Brattleboro Select Board. And I'll leave some materials. I will have to leave to put the kids to bed in about an hour, but just want to say thank you. And, listen.
Pat.
Hi, I'm Pat Fowler, representing the Bells Falls Downtown Development Alliance. Just want to remind everyone that Shop Local is going to be coming up starting in November. The little cards that we stamp, so it includes Rockingham, Westminster, Saxons River, Bells Falls, and Grafton businesses. And we just want to know that we like having your support, having you visit us. We have a lot of new activities planned for this year, and we'll be letting you know on our Facebook page and our website. So keep tuned. Thank you.
Hi, Betsy Thurston. I'm actually on behalf of the Bells Falls Rotary Club. The Bellows Falls Holly Jollies on December 1st, they would love to increase attendance, and with our meeting last week, they thought, wouldn't it be fun to have some town talent up there on stage? So think about, we would love Deb and Peter up there, but yeah, kind of skits and Christmas songs along with choruses of elementary school students. So just think about it and talk to David or myself.
Thank you, Betsy.
Thanks, Betsy.
This one gets me in trouble all the time. Any others? In here now, let's move on to the manager's report.
So just a couple things, because I know we have a long agenda, but if you look at your rockbf.org emails, you might have seen something that came through from an outfit called Know Before. So it's KNOWBE4. And that's somebody that we have hired to do phishing and security awareness for internet access training. So all the staff's been through it. We also asked them to send it to anybody who had a rockbf.org email address. It's one of the primary ways that we can protect ourselves from some of the problems that other communities have faced because of these phishing emails and the ways people are breaking in and creating havoc with local governments for a variety of different ransomwares and other problems. So if you could, I'd appreciate it. It's a 15-minute process to go through the initial training. It would be beneficial just from an awareness standpoint. It certainly helps all of us try to keep our network secure and hopefully not become a victim of that kind of ransomware. So if you do check your emails, you might have seen it, hopefully, and it's something that I'd appreciate if you could complete.
Before we get into the agenda, just a moment to make an announcement that I've been told to me that Ray Masuko has had a massive heart attack this morning and passed away,
Oh, my.
which will affect our item 7. So
Sure.
just so anyone knows, when they hear it on the street, that's what happens. So
Could we have a moment of silence for that?
we can certainly have a moment of silence for Mr. Masuko. Okay, first item on the agenda is the BF garage update. I think Peter's on, I saw his name up there. He's still there
Yes,
from Wyndham Regional.
right.
Hey, everybody. Hi, everybody. Yeah, Peter Paci from Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust. I'm here with Elizabeth Bridgewater. Scott and Gary requested that we come by and give a little update on our progress on the Bellows Falls Garage project. As I'm sure everyone is very aware, framing right now is ongoing. We have reached the top level of the building, and now we're doing the roof decking on that. We're currently doing great. The project is on schedule. The project's on budget. Things have been moving along very well. We have not encountered any supply chain issues yet. I don't want to jinx us, but we have a great construction manager who's been doing a great job of managing that whole process. So we have not been impacted by any supply chain issues or cost issues associated with that, which we're very thankful for. We have also been getting questions, and Gary had mentioned that some people have been asking questions about lease up, when we'll be done with construction, when we'll be ready for lease up. We're currently scheduled to finish construction in the end of March. Our leasing agent, Stewart Property Management, will begin taking applications about 60 days prior to that. So, right around the end of January, beginning of February. And that's when that process will start. Stewart Property is maintaining an interest list, so to speak, and Kathy Relihan at Stewart Property Management is managing that. She is based out of Canal House. That's where her office is. That just a note that interest list is not it's not an application list, and the order of that list does not affect applications. It's merely a list for contact information for people to be contacted when leasing does start. But I'd be happy to answer any questions. As I said, the project is really moving along quite well. As far as the town's involvement, as you're aware, the town is sponsoring a Vermont Community Development Program grant. We will be drawing that either this month or next month, and we'll be working with both Gary and Scott on that. But we're keeping all of our funders up to date, and everyone's very happy with the progress. As are we. So again, I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has, either from
Peter Golick here. I noticed in some article I read that Sevka is going to be managing some of the homeless. I think there's 6 apartments for homeless. Is that an interaction, or is Stuart going to do the whole management process?
Stuart does the whole property management process. Sevka will be supplying supportive services for those units. Those services range from kind of general budgeting to household services to, and Sevka offers some other services. I don't have those specific details about what services they offer, but they will be Sevka clients and working with Sevka. But Stuart Property Management remains the property manager for all lease and rental type issues.
Thanks for that clarity. Anyone else have any questions for some of the regional people? You can get off easy on this one, Pete.
Well, we'd be happy to come back and give any updates too. Just let Scott or Gary know. They can get in touch with us, and we'd be happy to come back and give any more updates.
Hey, let's move on to item
Thank you,
2,
guys.
which is the Redwood VHFA housing report. Oh, we got someone standing up already.
I'm John Dunbar. I'm here representing Rockingham Incremental Development Working Group this evening. If you don't know what RIDWIG is, that's a group of citizens and community stakeholders that have recognized an energy in the town centered around economic development, housing and development, just a lot of the issues that have come out of or opportunities that have come out of some of the recent projects that the town and other area organizations have invested in. So that group is interested in making sure this energy continues moving forward. One of the things, I think, if you've been involved in any of the topics that we've discussed or that are on the agenda tonight, housing, statewide, countywide is a huge issue. And it spills into many different aspects of our lives across the community. And I stumbled upon the Vermont Housing Needs Assessment, which is the Vermont Housing Finance Agency was contracted to develop this report and put together the statistics, which is then submitted to the state's 5-year consolidated plan to HUD. It also breaks down the state data into different counties throughout Vermont. And what we did, the RIDWIG group approached Vermont Housing Finance Agency and asked if they would be able to dig into the data further to what is represented in Rockingham, just so that we get a sense for what happens here in our little community. We've invited Seth, who is Managing Director of Community Development, Seth Leonard. He is the Director of Community Development at VHFA. And also we have invited Mia Watson, who is the VHFA's Research and Communications Coordinator. She is also author and researcher on many of the agency publications, and including this publication, the 2020 Vermont Housing Needs Assessment. So I know you guys have a long agenda. Certainly prepared to do a much longer introduction and even a summary, but I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Mia, who is going to present the data.
Thank you. And I'm just going to apologize in advance. There might be some
Recording
noise from
stopped.
small children in the background, but hopefully not too much. Okay, let me just share my screen.
You're the host now, Mia, so there you go.
Okay, is everyone seeing that?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, sounds good. So thank you for that introduction. we took a look at some of Rockingham's housing needs. So just to get an overview of sort of who lives in Rockingham and what homes are here. So Rockingham is home to 2,183 households, and about half of them live in the village of Bellows Falls. Unfortunately, for the purposes of this discussion, we couldn't look too closely at just the village or just the town outside the village, just because the margins of error get pretty small at that level. So we'll be keeping most of our discussion at the Rockingham side of things. But that includes the village as a subset of the data. Roughly 6% of Rockingham's housing stock is used as seasonal or vacation homes, and that's actually much less than is typical for Windham County, which has 33% of its stock used as seasonal or vacation homes. As of May, 21 Rockingham homes were listed as short-term rentals, and again, that might be part of the seasonal homes. It's hard to tell based on census records. That might be partially included in the seasonal homes count, but regardless, it's a small part of Rockingham's housing stock, and Airbnbs and other short-term rentals are less common in Rockingham than in other parts of the county. Owning a home in Rockingham is also somewhat less common than in Windham County as a whole. 55% of Rockingham households own their own homes, while 45% are renters. And in Windham County as a whole, 67% of households are homeowners. And I should have said at the beginning, please let me know if there's something that's not making sense or if you have any questions. Rockingham has experienced slight population decline over the last decade. There are 14 fewer Rockingham households in 2020 compared to 2010. Whereas you can see Vermont and Windham County had about equal moderate growth. Between the last decade, Vermont's population increased by about 6%. The decrease in households in Rockingham has mostly been concentrated amongst homeowners, and the town actually added 46 renter households over the past decade. Meanwhile, Rockingham homes cost somewhat less than the county as a whole. The median Rockingham home sold for $180,000 in 2021 compared to $240,000 in Windham County. So the median Windham County non-vacation home is about 33% more expensive than in Rockingham. And as you also see from this chart, Rockingham homes experienced a greater decline in home prices after the Great Recession and less price appreciation throughout the pandemic than in most parts of the state. But in Rockingham, just like everywhere else, we have seen, pretty substantial increase in prices due to the pandemic. There are signs that with rising mortgage interest rates, the home market might be softening. But while we've seen fewer sales so far this year, we haven't seen any lower prices. And as you can see what happened after the last recession, most parts of the state don't experience very prolonged price decreases after a recession. Our housing stock is so constrained and there are so few homes for buyers to choose among that we don't tend to see extended price decreases. It more tends to be a plateau over time in prices. So we'll have to see how that shakes out after the pandemic and prices sort of stabilize. So Rockingham homes are less expensive, but Rockingham incomes are also lower than the county. The median household income in Rockingham is $43,700 compared to Windham County at $52,000 and Vermont at $62,000, more or less. Rockingham renters and Rockingham homeowners are also lower compared to Windham County and Vermont as a whole. Rockingham renters have a median annual household income of about $27,000, and homeowners have a median income about $57,000. So while home prices are lower, purchasing price is also lower, and those tend to go hand in hand. At the same time, with those lower income levels, you also have to be worried about households spending too much of their income on housing costs. This is another stat that we don't have for Rockingham County, but for Windham County as a whole, 40% of households are cost burdened. That means they spend more than 1/3 of their income on housing costs. Spending 1/3 of your income on housing is still a lot, but that's the federal standard for affordability. So that's what we tend to look at with housing data. And I think it's really striking that this stat is higher in Windham County. So 40% of Windham County households are cost burdened compared to 34% of overall Vermont households. So that's a pretty significant increase. So we're seeing a little bit more stress among households in Windham County. 17% of all Windham County households spend more than half of their income on their housing. And that makes it extremely difficult to afford other basic necessities like food and childcare. And it also puts those households at much higher risk for eviction and foreclosure when you get to that severely cost burden, spending half of your income. Another issue that we've identified in Rockingham, specifically their housing stock, is that Rockingham has some of the oldest homes in the state. 58% of Rockingham homes were built before 1940 compared to 26% across Vermont. And Vermont already has sort of notably older housing stock than most parts of the country. While old homes can be wonderful and can be well maintained, when we see older homes, that tends to be a sign that there might be more problems with the housing stock in terms of quality. Older homes are more likely to have issues such as lead paint, asbestos, and weatherization issues compared to newer homes overall. Rockingham isn't really building too many homes. It records about an average of 10 building permits per year. And a building permit includes any unit. So a 10-unit apartment building would have 10 permits. And then 10 single-family homes would also record 10 building permits. So only about an average of 10 building permits per year over the last decade. Another issue that we noticed when we looked at Rockingham's housing stock was that it has an unusually high proportion of vacant homes that are not being used for sale or for rent or for seasonal homes. That's 6% of Rockingham's housing stock. And homes can be vacant for a lot of different reasons, including being under renovations or for personal reasons. But since the category can also include homes that are in poor condition and can't easily be sold or rented, it's used by housing researchers as a sign that the area's housing stock might not be in the best shape. So it's certainly something to watch.
And for context, I believe the number is 17% statewide in terms of second homes unused or otherwise vacant.
Right, but these vacant homes are actually separate. This is a separate category of vacant for reasons that we can't identify. So yeah, 17% of Vermont's housing stock is used for seasonal. I think, go back to my notes, I think Rockingham's is about 6%, so fewer seasonal homes, but more homes that are vacant for reasons that we don't know why. So that's just something to watch for in the housing stock because it can be a sign of lack of investment if homes aren't being put to another use that we can identify in the census data. So as I mentioned before, Rockingham records only about 10 new homes per year in the building permits. Vermont as a whole has had a pretty moderate growth in its housing stock, or I'd say moderate's overstating it really. It hasn't kept up with moderate population growth. Vermont builds about 2,000 homes per year. And although Vermont's housing stock has expanded at times in the 80s and in the run up to the Great Recession, overall, it's much less than in previous decades. And what we're hearing from our housing partners is that it's extremely difficult to bring new units online. We did a developer survey last year that revealed significant cost increases due to labor, the supply chain issues that you're all hearing about, and existing challenges with state and local permitting processes that add uncertainty and increase costs as part of the development process. Seth, did you want to add anything about that?
Yeah, we shared with the earlier group, compounding what we've seen as a slow rate of growth from the pandemic's perspective has been cost and inflation. So we've experienced in the affordable housing development pipeline about a 30% increase in cost over the last 3 years. And needless to say, our resources haven't kept pace, our natural stagnant resources haven't kept pace with that level of increase. We've been lucky to have access to American Rescue Plan Act or ARPA funding to fill a lot of the gaps that are caused by increase in prices. We're quickly approaching $400,000 per unit on the multifamily development side. Looking at a multifamily development, new construction, around $400,000 per unit. We're getting very accustomed to seeing applications in excess of $400,000 in certain locations as well. And Mia mentioned permits, and a lot of that's a sign of confidence. We have seen an increase statewide in the number of building permits being pulled through. But one discouraging factor is we've seen a wider difference between the number of permits pulled and the starts. And that's an indicator to us of a couple things. One is that there are some folks getting lost in the post-permitting process, we'll call it, meaning that they get a certain set of permits issued, but get bogged down in other statewide permitting processes. The other thing is just that cost is knocking a lot of permitted projects off schedule or off the map altogether in terms of developer confidence. Thanks, Mia.
So one issue that we often look at when we look at housing is jobs, because jobs tend to follow housing and housing tends to follow jobs. So they're very much in lockstep with each other. So this is an index we created of the ratio of jobs to homes. So the number of filled positions to occupied non-seasonal homes. So Rockingham has 2,183 non-vacation homes that are occupied compared to 1,871 jobs. That's a ratio of 0.86%. And the ideal ratio is 1.5%. And so that actually means that Rockingham has enough homes to fit all the jobs that are in Rockingham. That's good, but it can also be a sign that for whatever reason, jobs aren't attracted to that area. It's a complicated issue because many towns that have sort of more homes than jobs can serve as bedroom communities to other areas. And of course, our analysis didn't look at the New Hampshire data since we don't have as easy access to it. And obviously, you know, you're right on the border. And so jobs and homes and homeowners can move back and forth between areas. But it's just something to keep in mind in terms of you want to have a ratio that's a little bit closer to 1.5 in terms of the sort of golden ratio where you've got lots of jobs and you've got enough homes to fill that need. So we're seeing a little bit under that. Other areas of the states have different challenges. The big darker orange block in the middle of the state is Berlin, which has, you know, very few homes to meet the number of jobs in that location and compared to Chittenden County. So the availability of homes is great, but this sort of speaks to, you know, are the jobs coming to meet the homes and the housing stock? And one issue that can kind of come up is like, so are the homes that are in Rockingham meeting the needs of workers and therefore its population? 38% of Rockingham households are one-person households, but only 17% of all homes are studio or one-bedroom unit. And 72% of all households in Rockingham are either one or two-person households. So, you know, this isn't uncommon in the state, but certainly Rockingham has a pretty dramatic version of having homes that are larger than the average people who live in it. The average Vermont household size is 2.3. So Rockingham's household sizes are a little bit smaller than that. Vermont's household size has shrunk over time, and demographics are predicting that that will continue to increase. And the Rockingham data also bears that out. 76% of Windham County households are either one or two people. So that's something to consider in terms of, you know, if you are building more homes and you want those homes to support the county as a whole and therefore the county workforce, really looking into what sort of homes would fit the needs of those individuals or those households. Seth, did you have anything on this?
No, I think just one of the dynamics we're seeing is a lot of municipalities expressing a great interest in increasing the number of bedrooms being produced, especially when it comes to new development. And I think this continues to speak to a need for balance. And when we look at wait lists across the state, I was in a meeting in Morrisville yesterday that broke down a 550 person wait list for Lamoille County for affordable housing developments. And it was very overwhelmingly 1 and 2 bedrooms, just to be really clear. That doesn't mean that there's an absence of need in the 3 bedroom area, but the number of overhoused households we have living in 3 bedrooms that could be in 1 or 2 bedroom units is for a lack of availability of 1 and 2 bedroom units. So they're very closely tied together.
Thanks. So, you know, one thing to consider is, where do we want to build new homes? We've talked about jobs, and obviously bringing homes in close connection to jobs, making walkable homes is a crucial thing. But also just the benefits to a community. Dense, walkable communities are highly energy efficient and more cost efficient. As you can see from this chart, rural and suburban homes tend to cost towns a lot more in services. That's because, you know, just things like road maintenance, police and emergency vehicle responsive, things like that, infrastructure like sewer, water, things like that. The tax value per acre is much higher in a downtown center, especially when you can get mixed use, like a multifamily building that might have some commercial space on the ground floor. And downtown communities also tend to have residents that can walk to more things, and therefore those households tend to have far fewer vehicle miles traveled each year, which relates to, oh, sorry, did someone say something? Sorry if I'm missing something. Anyways, that just relates to the idea of Vermont's increasing need to contain carbon emissions and the important role that building walkable communities and reducing transportation emissions will have to play in that. So that's all I have on this. Oops. But I welcome any questions. I'm not sure how much time we have, but we're also available at the HFA as a continued resource to help communities meet their housing needs.
Any questions for John or Pete from the regional?
I'm looking at the chart that you have on the 40% of county households spend too much on their housing costs. I was wondering, in looking at Rockingham versus Windham County of the state, do you have a feel for rental rates here versus in these other areas?
Right, so Rockingham has more renters than the county as a whole, and renters are more likely to be cost burdened than homeowners. It's a little tricky to project that out. The data that we have at the Rockingham level for this indicator is not statistically reliable. It just means that the margins of error for the survey aren't good enough for us to say whether the data is reliable. But generally, because Rockingham has more renters, I would say that it likely has at least as many households that spend too much on their housing costs. And that likely includes homeowners. Homeowners can pay too much for their housing as well, but renters are more likely to be cost burdened than homeowners. I think about half of all Vermont renters are cost burdened, paying too much for housing.
That's what I'm trying to get at, and I probably didn't phrase it very well, is are rental rates in, let's say, for a 2-bedroom apartment, okay? In Rockingham, are they less than, equal to, or greater than the same rates in Windham County or the state of Vermont?
Sure. I took a look at this. I didn't include it in the presentation because the data is already so we have good recent home sale price data because we get that from the tax department, but our rent data comes from the Census Bureau and they lag quite a bit. So I didn't include it in the presentation, but overall, we've seen that Windham County rents and Rockingham rents are about the same, and those are both a little bit lower than Vermont as a whole. I'd be reluctant to put a number to it just because so much has changed since the pandemic and we've seen a lot of price increases everywhere, but I would expect to be roughly consistent with the county is my sense.
Okay, so there's an income problem, but there's also a rental rate problem, obviously, if the incomes are less. So thank you.
Yep, absolutely. We definitely see cost burden as both high home prices and also, wages not keeping pace with those costs. So it's a two-sided problem for sure.
Tom, you have some comments? Gary?
Yeah, hi. Could you just repeat how many vacant housing units for unknown reasons there are?
Sure. Yep, I'm just pulling up that slide. Give me one sec. So this changes a little bit from census survey to census survey, but Rockingham, according to the last estimate, had 224 homes that were called other vacant according to the census. And like I said, those are homes that aren't vacant because they're for rent or for sale or because they're someone's vacation home. They're vacant for some other reason. And sometimes that's a just a personal reason of the owner, or it's being renovated for another use. But generally those 224 homes are more likely to be abandoned or in poor enough state that they can't easily be sold or rented. So it's not the be all and end all of housing stock indicators, but housing researchers do look at that at the sort of macro level to say, okay, maybe this community has housing stock that might be in more likely to be in a state of disrepair.
It's over 10% of the housing stock. Can you repeat again how many 2+ bedroom homes with 1 or 2 people there were?
Sure, let me navigate to that. So there are, you can see from that, I'd have to do some quick math. So 2+, let's see. So that's 83% of the stock would be 2 or more bedroom units. And I don't have numbers on that. I could certainly get it. I just took the percentage of homes, but we do have that data.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So thank you, Seth and Mia, for getting us that data for Rockingham. And just as a very quick summary, obviously Rockingham population is declining. Home values are not keeping pace with the county or the state. Median income is well below Windham County and the state median income. We have some of the oldest housing stock in the state. Construction's not keeping pace with demand. Our housing stock does not support job growth. Small households are living in housing units too big for their needs. Development is being pushed to more rural areas, which increases cost of the town services for these homes and also increases transportation costs for the household. You all will be reviewing a town plan that the town is updating. And I think that these are obviously challenges, but we have an opportunity at this point to address some of these huge needs that we have. And as I said, housing will have a ripple effect to many other parts of our community. So thank you guys for allowing VHFA to present this data, and thank you. And if you have any questions, certainly reach out.
Tom?
She did say that there's more housing than jobs, right?
Right.
Currently, yes, but I wanted to highlight in the presentation that just because there's enough job housing doesn't mean that the housing is the right fit for the workforce or in good condition. So it's a complicated balance. Generally, in thriving communities, you do see a steady pace of growth. It doesn't have to be significant growth, but development in general is a good sign of the health of a community.
Anyone else? Wait.
Can I ask a question of Mr. Wessel?
That subject's gone.
No.
Oh, okay.
But if you want to comment, you're more than welcome to chair game.
That's what I mean. So as a possible Senate, I was just curious what your thoughts were on this, or if you had any. I mean, it's a big topic.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that for the last 5.5 years, I've been entirely, absorbed at Brattleboro, going it alone as part of the Brattleboro Select Board. So tonight, I'm really like expanding my realization that you have a unique challenge here, especially when the housing stock was just mentioned. I would say that in Brattleboro, we tend to have more of a stratified, like the rich and the poor, and less the middle, perhaps, in Rockingham. But, and as far as addressing it, it's so key, I think, to think of this as interrelated. It's like a balloon. If you squeeze one end of it, it's going to blow up on the other end. And the balance between jobs and housing has to be found very carefully in each separate municipality. It's really like a state, trying to solve the problem for the entire state, but it doesn't recognize municipality by municipality individual needs.
Thank you.
Okay, does anyone else have any comments or suggestions on this subject?
My only comment is the fluctuation of the data, which is unfortunate because of a lot of lag from state and federal means, is concerning because you want to say apples to apples, and we can't have an accurate comparison because we can't get accurate numbers on everything. My concern was with the sales data that you listed only went to 2021. Was that the beginning, the middle, the end of 2021? I'm sorry, 2020. So a lot of activity, according to what I understand from attorneys who deal with real estate, there was a significant increase in 2020 to 21 and in 21. I'm just concerned that it says homes sold average 180,000. That's not the number I heard. So I'm not sure where your data came from for that. Does that come from the state?
Yep, it does. It comes from property transfer tax records. So we look at, records of homes sold. So it's fairly comprehensive. This data goes through 2021. Our agency has a policy of looking at data not less frequently than every 6 months or every year. So it's 2020 as a whole, not a specific month. And that's because Vermont's home sales, there's not that many of them, and especially in Rockingham. So you can get some pretty large variation in month to month. So we tend to look at a larger portion, but it is up to date. It's as of 2021. The state data does include homes sold without a realtor. So if you talk to realtors, sometimes they'll see a little bit higher numbers because homes sold without a realtor can sometimes be a little lower prices, things like that. But it is considered a pretty comprehensive data set.
I'm just concerned that there might be also reporting lag from different agencies that have to get that data to them. So that's just it. Just want to see if we can get as close to in real time as possible. Thank you.
Anyone else? Going once? Hey, thank you all for presenting the information to us. We'll move on to item 3.
Can you give us a minute? I got to get the screen back from
Oh, yeah.
Mia here.
Which will be a review of the bike head
Thank you,
projects. Rick, are you heading that charge, or is I see some other members of your committee here?
Well, it's my privilege to be the liaison. And we have some of our fabulous members here, Stan Helmstrup, Bonnie Anderson, Marcia Stern, and Marcia is the chair of our committee. And Scott has a graphic that he wants to show you of one of our projects.
I'll hand this around to
Okay.
folks at the table.
Marcia, would you like to say a few words about what we're doing? Okay, I will. All right, so our mission is to make Rockingham a friendlier, safer for bicyclists and pedestrians. And the two areas that we've been working on most focus are bike racks, and secondly, in making our sidewalks a little clearer, particularly the sidewalk that runs between the Legion and Walgreens. You may know that's just people who lived here a long time may recall that was once a sidewalk. Now it's just a paved. I mean, it's indistinguishable from the travel lane of the street. So we are proposing that be painted, as you can see here, just so people tend to park on it, drive on it, and pedestrians are pretty vulnerable. This is just a first step in making it better, more bike and pedestrian friendly sidewalk. So you can see that we wish to paint it, and this graphic has been prepared by Jonathan Weber, who's our with Local Motion. It's a bike pedestrian advocacy group out of Burlington. So that's our first plan that we want to present tonight. Relatively simple, relatively inexpensive. And welcome, anyone, community members who'd like to speak to it.
Well, I just would say that we're starting with these projects that are easier and quicker to get something done. Chuck called it low hanging fruit, because, you know, we want to start off by making progress right away. So we will be moving on to bigger projects, like trying to make route from Bella Falls to Saxon River safer. But this is, you know, we're just trying to identify the local things and getting the bike racks really help people ride more as well.
One of the bike rack locations we're considering is the Hetty Green Park / TD Bank parking lot. We think that people who ride into town or go to the farmer's market will need a safe place to put their bikes. Sometimes they see bikes chained to street lamps and other benches and stuff around town. So we think there's a better way, and so.
Not now, we have bike racks downtown.
That's right. That was one of our successes, just bike racks. And we want to put them in other places. So you guys want to describe what our other locations might be?
Yeah, so we're working on getting one at the library, and they have one, but it's being taken up by their new book trade. The post office is another one. Saxon's River Market. They're very excited to have one there. And there's another one, Saxon River here at the post office. Right? But in Hetty Green Park, there will hopefully be two. So one at the edge of the park, very visible, over the school street end, and then actually just below the park in the municipal lot, the edge of the municipal lot. Yeah. It's like 5 feet back, so.
We've spoken to some business owners, including the owner of the Saxon Market, and they've expressed willingness to have a bike rack on their property. Who's going to pay for this bike rack is the next question. So
and we also, sorry,
yes,
we do want to move on also to other businesses like Walgreens. That's the one we talked about, but and Misa's, yeah. Yeah, because there is nowhere to park.
That's it.
Okay, any questions for the committee, bike path committee?
I just have a question. Are you saying an increase in the use of electric bikes in town? People using those as opposed to traditional pedal bikes?
I am definitely, we see more, we're in a great spot there to see what's going by, and we do see more and more, and we also have people coming by to either repair them or looking for them. We actually decided several years ago to, even though we were heading toward wanting to deal with e-bikes, we were not just the right way, but we are seeing an increase.
Because I mean, that brings other safety issues involved because they're faster, and also people might park more at these facilities if there's safe parking with an e-bike. I wouldn't leave my e-bike unattended.
Stephanie, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just got a couple of things. I wanted to inquire, and I know we had a discussion in the trustees meeting, but it falls under your purview, select board. And Brattleboro, I've seen for their bike path, and over some places in New York, they use that green color.
Mhm.
What are your guys' thoughts for color and aesthetics, et cetera? And then I got a comment after that.
Okay, the color question actually was quite complicated. And, John, can you guys?
I'll speak to it. So Jonathan said that green is generally reserved just for bike, specifically bike paths. So this sidewalk, bikes might ride on it, but it's really a sidewalk. And so
Right.
if it's green, people would perceive it as a bike path. And bike path. So it's kind of delineating what should be a sidewalk, where so there's no curve. So it's delineating the sidewalk.
Okay, then I had to renew a license that I have down in Chelsea, Mass, and I noticed some the pavement markings. They were doing some pavement markings on a private lot. So I just inquired, because back here in the FWW days, they used to do the line markings mixed about the glass beads. And what the young guy mentioned that was there, he says, actually, they're using some reflectorized paint, but it's a combination reflectorized and glow in the dark paint. And I'm thinking, when you sometimes come into the square, it is hard to define if you have a sidewalk area there. So I thought, gee, maybe that glow in the dark would be a nice idea. And I looked into it just briefly, and there are some places, some governments that use not only the reflectorized, but glow in the dark lines at night. I guess when they have an older population can easily see these. And, I'm also looking forward to maybe, I know you said it was at some point on the list, but a center line that we used to have down through here, because I think it helps a lot of people navigate and also keeps people that are walking on both sides, where there's a sidewalk and where there's not, to help them to be safer.
That's a good way.
But that glow in the dark thing, I think is a neat idea.
I think Scott, Andy could look into that.
Right, the only thing I'd caution the boards about is we have 99 sidewalks here between us, between the villages and the town. So, these things are always cost related. That's one of the items. I'm sure Stevin's right. I haven't looked into what the price would be, but my guess would be it's probably substantially more expensive.
Wait, do you have comments?
So two quick questions. How soon are you looking at doing this?
I was just gonna say that we committee met with Scott, and we realized that painting at this time of the year, there's a very little to do it. And secondly, that it would get scraped more by the plows and stuff, so Scott's suggesting spring.
Right, we thought it would make sense to do it as a spring project.
So it's something like the highway department would do?
Once it gets below 45 degrees at night, the paint really doesn't set very well. And you'll end up just scraping it off in less than a season.
So it's a spring project.
Yeah.
For highway?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm just curious.
Anyone else? All right, before we move to item 4, I'd like to direct your attention to 2 articles in their packet. One is a project certification completion report and a bid form number 1, and I'll ask Scott to address those 2 issues, to explain them. If anybody understand what it's about.
I'm sorry, Peter, which 2 of those? I was probably jumping tax sale, so.
As those, the state completion report on the flooding.
I think
that was just in yours, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
That was just.
Yeah, that was just an update.
Okay, just so everybody knows what they for. Okay, let's move on to the big one here. Tax sale update. There is a list in your packet. Everybody got one?
So there's a few new colors on this chart from the last time we spoke and looked at these properties. The ones that are highlighted in yellow are new since the last time we spoke. They've aged out. They're more than 2 years past due, so now they're on the list. The last list that you had did not include these. There's also 7 properties that have been withdrawn from the list and put into limbo because of the new program with the VHFA and the state law about you have to go through the VHFA and hold your tax sale in abeyance until the property owner is vetted and a determination is made if they're going to be paying past due taxes or helping a property owner catch up. So you can see we have 7 properties currently, they're in process. We have not received any actual payments from BHFA. We've asked them, is there any estimated dates, or can you give some sense to the board as to when we might see actual payments coming, and nobody will commit to any kind of time schedule. So it could be a week, it could be a month, it could be 6 months. It really is undetermined. So they wouldn't even give me a frame of reference. I said, well, give me 2 months or 3 months, some idea so I can let the board know it's gonna be within this budget year. They wouldn't even commit to doing that. So I don't know how long that portion's gonna continue. Yes.
Well, first of all, you told me that the 4 and highlighted are in probate.
No, the blue are in probate.
The blue are in probate, what are the yellow ones?
New, since the last report
They're
that you
new,
received.
okay, so I got confused there. But on the bottom of the VHFA, I noticed at least one particular property I know is in the village, and yet there's no village taxes up. How's that possible?
They might have paid a portion, so that might not be 2 years past due on the village.
So it doesn't show.
And doesn't show. Only the ones that are by your tax sale policy are the ones that are showing on the slide.
Right, but say for instance, on this particular property, it's in the village. And it may not have all the taxes paid on it. If it were to go to tax sale, say, ooh, they're done and they didn't get it all paid and it was balance left. And it went onto the regular list, so it would appear in the tax sale list. All of the taxes currently due at that time would have to be included, right? Including taxes that are under 2 years old. So like the village taxes, all of it would be rolled into one.
Prior to tax sale, one of the items that the attorney does is he does do research, and he'll have that available. So there'll be a specific update to that
at that time
prior to the sale.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Diggs, and then back to Suffolk. The items in probate, why is that, why are those automatically taken out of the tax sale list?
Well, again, I was talking with Ray about that specifically, and he was under the impression that those were going to be resolved somewhat soon when I spoke with him the last time. So I don't know now what the status is going to be with his firm. So we'll have to follow up with him, with the firm on that, and then get back to the board.
Okay.
Because I think they were part of things that he was specifically aware of, that he was working.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
And seeing the recent news here earlier in the meeting, is that going to affect the timing of the progress of this tax sale?
Definitely. Yeah, we haven't spoken obviously today
Right.
to the firm. It was probably not the best day to try to get an update. So I will sit down with Josh sometime in the next week or so, get some sense of what they're going to be looking at, and then talk about a work schedule and get back to you guys and let you know.
Right. I just want to offer kudos to Alyssa Harlow. This has been an ongoing problem for some years. The numbers have built up to a really embarrassing level, and she's making great progress on getting these past 2 taxes done. So I want to register support for her work.
I appreciate that. I know she's online, but yeah, it's a lot of work to track it down. It's a lot of coordination between the attorney's office and clerk's office has to pull, all sorts of information as well. It's an all hands effort to get these things to the tax sale. And we still have work to do. So, but I do appreciate too. It's a lot of work.
Bonnie?
How do you find out where these properties are located?
The numbers off to the far right, or far left.
Property ID number.
We didn't put addresses down. We only did it by
Yeah.
owner and tax ID numbers.
The listers site where the GIS mapping is,
Right.
you could, don't put in the first 2 digits, but the last 7 digits will pull up the property.
Don't put in the first two?
The first two are used by the town and village for designation, whether it's a town property, residential, commercial, whatever, but the last 7 are the actual card number for that listing. And you put that in, or the last name, it'll pull up the properties. I was back and forth with the listers this week about it. And Alyssa, because she didn't know why the numbers in the front were there either, so it's just it's a designator, and the listers and the town are probably going to equalize that, so they're all the same at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, put in the last 7 digits, it'll pull it up.
So when we actually start this process, you will let the public know the address, right?
Oh, yeah, there's a host of requirements that we're still
Yeah.
required to do with all sorts of notice requirements. the board has to be involved in terms of properties that the board might want to bid on, for example. So there's lots of steps still to be done here. We're not anywhere close to completed. And the public has multiple places where this is required to be posted as well.
Okay, anything else on the tax sale list? Hearing none, let's move right on to item number 5, which is fire equipment committee report.
Thank you. So I'm just going to touch on a couple documents briefly, and then I think Kevin's here, and I think maybe some other fire folks that might want to jump in. But at our last fire equipment committee meeting, we were talking about the status of our existing equipment and what the potential might be to extend the useful life of our apparatus before we have to do any replacements. Because as you can see from the one handout that I gave you, the apparatus replacement schedule, in Bellows Falls, potentially you have an engine that looks like it's in scheduled replacement for 23, as well as in Rockingham, you've got engine 1 that's scheduled out for 24. These numbers are not necessarily 100% accurate, they're just placeholders, so just wanted to give you a sense of that. And then if you look behind those numbers in the long-term debt schedule, you'll see that we're still paying notes on a 2019 rescue vehicle and a 2019 pumper. And those are still ongoing.
Oh, those are the ones dated in the 2020 column on the first sheet.
So we still have some payments to be made on those as we go forward as well. Including if you look out into 2025, there's a substantial principal payment due on the pumper of $151,000. As well as a fairly large payout on the rescue vehicle of $44,000. So in 2025, you've got a fairly substantial, on the current debt schedule at least, you've got a fairly substantial obligation. So with that in mind, as the discussion with the committee went, we wanted to get a better sense of what we might be able to do to either push out the longevity of our existing equipment or look at other alternatives before there was a discussion with the boards about any kind of replacement or any need to do additional bonding or additional borrowing. So it's a little bit conservative. We did bring in a company to look at the status of our equipment over the summer. I don't have that report completed. I was working with Sean to try to get that for this evening. I don't think he had it finalized in time. So once that's done, we'll share that with the fire equipment committee. There'll be a series of recommendations from that equipment review in terms of what types of repairs or major upgrades might be necessary to extend the useful life of the equipment. And do those repairs make sense versus an outright replacement? Some of the repairs might be fairly reasonable. Some of them could be fairly expensive depending upon pumps and hydraulics and the types of specialty equipment that fire trucks operate with. So we're waiting to get those numbers, share those with the equipment committee, and then there'll be a recommendation that will come back prior to the budgeting process, which will be starting probably sometime in November for the town for sure. And then obviously the village after that. So that's sort of the background as to where we are currently on the equipment side. Kevin, I don't know if you want to jump in with any other information.
Waiting to see what that report said. We did reach out to a vendor on the cost of replacing the pumper. And they said if you're going to look at purchasing one next year in March, with the price increases that are going on right now, you'll be looking at around $650,000 for the pumper.
Yeah. I guess the other piece that I should have updated the board on is we still have, if you remember, 2 grant requests, multiple grant requests, but 2 grant requesting agencies, FEMA and also USDA. I think we both have equipment requests that are outstanding. And so I think the federal FEMA monies are going to run out at the end of September. They've been awarding it periodically, but we have not received any money. And Sean's here in the back. And I think, Sean, what, 9 communities in Vermont received money so far?
Yes, that's correct.
So it doesn't bode well for us in terms of thinking that we're going to be able to get, we had over $600,000 in requests for equipment replacement out in those various grants. So we don't anticipate that we're going to be funded. If we are, that's a wonderful surprise, and we'll be very, very pleased, but I don't particularly think that's going to happen as well.
I don't know much about this, but as I counted, we've got 6, between the 3 departments, we have 6 pumper trucks. And is that the idea that that's the optimal number this town should have? Or I mean, is there any chance of looking at the needs more at a total town basis? I think it has been in recent years much more with the committee, much more looked at as a town need, and then parsing out the vehicles. But I'm just wondering if I guess there's like 11 vehicles here. Is that deemed to be the right number, or is there a chance that there could be fewer?
Well, I think that's probably lots of opinions on that. I think that there are fire-related reasons why that in some cases there's multiple requirements, and in some cases it's more historical, that departments have had various pieces of equipment over time. I don't know if it's ideal, Jigs. I don't think we've ever had an independent person come and give us their opinion as to what our ideal equipment allocation would be based on how large of an area that our fire departments are servicing, how many calls that they respond to. And, then again, we sort of have a challenge here because we have urban and rural types of fires, and they do require different types of equipment and different kinds of responses. So it's a question that's really not, I don't have good data to give you an answer. I'd rely on the chiefs maybe to more jump in and give a better answer than what I can give.
Because I think, obviously the study on the condition of the equipment is important, but I would think that this would also be when we read about these, when an incident happens, it seems like the mutual aid situation in this area works pretty well. But anyway, to me, that ought to be one of the critical issues is what is the right number for this town?
Fine.
Yeah, this is enormously expensive. Has anybody ever taken a good accounting from an economic standpoint only, look at having one Rockingham Fire Department that services the whole town? That would address what Jiggs is talking about. Do we have redundant things that, does every department need everything? If we had one fire department, how much will we save?
I don't know if we can tell you right now, standing here today, what we would say, because there's also pieces of this, Bonnie, that I can't answer about manpower. Right, because that's a big change.
Well, right, I know, because
The
you have
nature of the
volunteers.
fire service is changing. And it's changing, decade by decade. So it's hard for me to tell you today what we should be looking at for 5 years and 10 years from now. Because the nature of the folks who are serving,
Right.
it's changing.
Right.
And it's under stress.
Well, is this something that we could allocate some money or time to someone to really do a sort of in-depth analyzation of the situation here, instead of having 3 sort of somewhat cooperating and somewhat competing fire departments? Just take a look at what our needs really are and how could we construct a central townwide fire department?
We've had that done with policing in the past.
Right.
I don't see any reason why there isn't an expert in the state who could do an analysis, if that's what is wanted.
I would like to see one, and I would like, as we deal with budgets, so this is a lot of money. a lot of money. And I would like to see one, you know, as a representative of the taxpayers, I think we'd all like to see one.
Wait, is that something that maybe that we could put on our, what you're talking about?
Right.
Get it on our agenda for fire committee meetings?
There is a whole host of people that will come in and do analysis based on your, right. and
No, I
give
know that, but it's
recommendations.
something we could also
Discuss it.
discuss on our fire committee. meeting.
Absolutely.
And, you know, maybe this is something, if we have some information, some actual, you know, hard information about what the savings would be, what the compromises might be, you know, and so forth and so on. Maybe it needs to go to the voters next March.
I think that was the purpose of that feasibility study, which we haven't heard anything about yet. That was going to have, it was a grant for $20,000, or it was, the cost was $20,000, 10,000 was coming from the USDA, 5,000 from Saxon's River, and then 5,000 from Elks Falls.
Right, and we still haven't seen that.
We have
feasibility
not.
study yet. It's been, how long has it been now?
Too long. It's been since December.
Yeah.
And
for a year.
You have the whole, of what the reason, the whole up is, Gary, I mean, I've kind of pointed you the grant man, but.
USDA, I think they often get behind, there's huge demand, there's a lot of funding, federal funding, applications, limited people to do the work. Could be part of it, could be like the FEMA one, that they're triaging by priority and what's highest need and meets that. And this one probably isn't a highly scoring project in terms of need. USD, I don't know that for sure, but could be a lot of things, but basically they don't have they haven't responded with an award or no award, and there's no reason to think they will really quickly, since they haven't, and the timeline's gone by a couple of months already.
Yes, yeah, I just want to add, I know this is just a brief discussion, but my question about the equipment was in other words, looking at the equipment from a consolidated standpoint. I'm not a fan of consolidating the fire department. I think the what we have now, I don't know how sustainable it is, but I think we're very fortunate to have this grouping of three different departments that work quite well, except for maybe a recent event. And I think when you look at cost, this is just the equipment cost. If you were to consider labor cost, that would blow this whole thing open. And I think that as I said, I think we're very fortunate this town that we have the Saxons River Department, the Rockingham Department, and the newly organized Bellows Falls Department. So I'm really not in favor at all of consolidating, except for things like equipment. Let's be realistic in terms of, if we need a pumper, then that pumper should go wherever the fire is type of thing. And do you need 6 of them? That's the question, to service this town. So that's, I just wanted to clarify.
Well, I'm trying to understand what you said there, Jake. So if there was just one fire department, why would that create more labor costs than current?
We have different structures right now. You have all volunteer.
So you'd say that we would lose our volunteers if we did?
Well, I think you could very well, create unintended consequences for a system that I think works pretty well. And I think you just create an issue that maybe someday it has to be faced, but to accelerate that, to me, would be a big mistake.
Well, I understand that there would probably be some pushback on that, from some of the volunteers that are. But that's also,
And Sean wants to.
oh, volunteers.
If I could, I think it would, I could suggest, if you're waiting for this grant to come through, why doesn't the town, if you're looking at spending a couple $1 million on equipment, spend $20,000 to see what you should actually spend it on?
Yes.
Bingo.
Amy.
So one of the things that Ellen's been talking to me about recently is whether we should agree that the grant is unlikely to come through and look at funding a consultant to do the kind of study that we want. Gary spent, Ellen spent a lot of time putting together that feasibility study, but having it funded by the USDA seemed like the right thing to do. But finding the information may be more important, given the kind of numbers we're facing with equipment costs in the coming years.
Wait, I think, anybody else?
Susan had her hand.
Yeah, I just said, I mean, being in the very far corner of Rockingham, I would worry a lot about a consolidated department because the Rockingham department is accessible to that end of town, and having to have response time is really important. And having pumpers is really important when there isn't access to water where we're at. So I think it would be good to look at all of the needs, but also remember the needs of each part of town are very different in regards to fire safety. So.
Anyone else? Seeing and hearing none, let's move along
I was
to.
gonna say one thing. So, I'm not gonna elaborate on it. But, there are ways of making all this work. Down the road. I mean, it would be a big project, but I think there is room for quite a few more efficiencies. But the other thing I just wanted to point out is there is a trickle down effect as well. Just for example, and maybe Kevin's here, or Sean, what's an air pack cost nowadays, a new one?
About 22,000
For an air pad?
Yeah.
I think it was that much for just a Scott pack,
When I priced them 2 years ago for the grant, they were 19.
but not 19,000, but about 2,200. I think that we pay about $5,000 for our.
I was thinking 5 or 6 grand.
Yeah.
So having the makeup of our fire service protection in this town right now does lead to other costs that are borne that could be improved upon. And this is just one other example, not even talking about trucks, wheels going down the road. In this town, under our current structure, we take care of and purchase and maintain. I think I might be off one, but approximately 35 air packs at the tune of $6,000. What's that? I don't even know.
Yeah.
How much?
150.
So 150 grand just for air packs. Up the road in Springfield, cross over the line into Springfield, Vermont, there's a fire department that covers the whole thing. They have 23 air packs. And they have quite a few more calls and bigger population than we serve. So that's just one inkling of, if we had 23 air packs instead of 36 or 35, I mean, what's that savings right there? 60, 70, 75,000 roughly. So I'm just saying there's other, that's the big ticket stuff.
Right.
But there's other things that could be improved upon as well.
Right, and we've been
that's
looking,
just one
at,
example.
we look at those budget figures all the time.
Yeah.
I know that this is kind of an emotional discussion for a lot of people. But we do want to keep our volunteers. They're local heroes. They respond and they're great. I don't see why we would lose all of them or too many of them if we were to do something like this. But anyway, I'm just suggesting that some time and money be allocated to look into this thoroughly, and so that our boards can really take a look at it, to step above the emotional level and really get practical with this issue. That's all.
Yeah.
Springfield Fire Department, is it full-time or volunteer?
It's a combination, full-time and common.
Okay, so there's a cost there if we consolidate that, build a bigger fire station to a tune of how many $1 million? And then probably staff it with some full-time employees, because you're gonna have a lot of volunteers that probably don't want to do that. So.
Well, I don't think that's not really part of this discussion, but.
I think it is, if people are looking to consolidate and get rid of fire departments.
Hey, let's not get too far afield there.
Yeah.
Mr. Pugliano.
Just in line with that last comment and some of the things I've heard, having been on 2 of the 3 fire departments, what you have is not working, for those that think it is. And I think when folks reference consolidate, it means that firehouse up by Susan's house could stay there. No one's moving anything. No one's building $1 million firehouses. You need one body under one governing body that works together, I think is the idea.
Yeah, I wouldn't support building a new fire station.
Right, so everything's gonna come out of Rockingham?
No, everything's the same. It's one body controls this town of Rockingham Fire Department. We all live in the town of Rockingham. You're shaking your head, which part?
One department in 3 locations. rather
Yes,
than
and they're
3.
assigned.
We're all in the town of Rockingham.
Yeah.
Right?
But you're suggesting one department under
Isn't
one.
that, that's consolidating, that's right.
So do the Rockingham Fire Department, each village would have their own, but it's. Oh, yeah, I don't have a problem with that, but it sounds like she wants to have one fire station.
I didn't say anything.
no,
about
Never
that.
said that.
No.
I think what
You
the
said
impression
that.
I
I
get
said
is
that.
you have your central station and you have your west station or your substation with the north.
But
and
that's
south.
another topic, but
Yeah.
what you have right now is not working. Having been in 2 of the 3.
So for example, you have the town highway employees. And anybody correct me if I'm wrong. The Rockingham town employees are allowed to leave for fire calls. in The town of Rockingham. But if there's firefighters from the village of Ellis Falls that are town employees, it's frowned upon when they leave their town job to come to the village to fight fire. But the village or the town, it expects employers to let their employees go. So if you want employees to let their employees go, employers let their employees go, you need to really let your town employees go too, to these fires. Because that part's not working either.
We're getting far afield here, we're getting into personalities and it's situations that are not to do with the equipment committee, so I'm gonna close the discussion on this. I think we should go forward a bit on the village can talk to their people and Sac River can do, towns can take care of theirs. I think we got a lot of, figure out a system that we can all chip in thirds or quarters or whatever you want to call it, and get a study started somewhere, if we can find somebody to do it. And this is what we did just the last time. And get a study going. I know the last one, they told us everything we had and nothing about anything. That was, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, or from some of you remember when that stuff, and you remember when that
Maybe
was?
19 years ago.
Yeah, something like that. They had somebody come down. I think it was a big LCD person came down, and all they told us was that, yep, Saxon River's got 4 trucks, Rockingham's got 10, and this one's got 4, and never told us what
Their recommendation.
what their recommendations really were. So I think there needs to be a chart, needs to be figured out between the departments as to, calls, as Scott said, calls, number of personnel that are gonna be there. Why don't we all train together instead of going, everybody on their own little truck and going every which way and
Didn't you just close the discussion?
So there.
There's that can of worms cracking open.
Let's move on to item 6, Atkinson Street, property, 66 Atkinson property police update.
I didn't put anything in writing into your packets, just want to give you an update as to what's happened over the summer. So we were approached by a group that was interested in a lease. They had done some initial soil work. They wanted to do some additional soil work, so you notice you'll see some boring stakes on the property that those relate to trying to determine layouts and what might be feasible for planting and what types of layout they would have on that particular property. So it took them longer than they anticipated. We have not gotten any of that detailed information back yet. And after that, then there'll be some attempt to bring you a lease of some sort based on that boring information. So I'm hopeful to have something for you later this fall. I just am sort of waiting for that material to come back and then the discussion to start from there. So that's why there really hasn't been any real movement on what's happening on the site.
Okay, any questions on that? Seeing none, let's move on to number 7, request for attorney, which may be a little bit in the future here.
Yeah.
And the request for, you want to table this? Or do you
I was
wanna go-
hoping that maybe we could take this item and table it from the agenda, and then I'll bring it forward to both boards individually before the end of
I just need
October.
to point, you know.
Yeah, I need to speak to the
negotiate
firm
more.
and then talk to the boards to see
All
where
right,
we stand.
let's
So,
table that and move on to number 8, the DEI declaration of inclusion item.
right, so I brought this back to your agenda after conversations at the previous meeting. Made some updates to some of the language as well, so that it was in response to some of the comments we had received from the prior discussions. So that was sort of the updated document that we included, as well as I included some information that Deb had forwarded. She's been working with statewide folks.
Yeah, the VLCT group.
And VLCT about a new initiative that's called Ideal Vermont. And so I just incorporated some of the information that Deb had received. And I don't know, Deb, if you wanted to give any updates beyond what was attached from the Ideal Vermont process.
Well, they're working on, they're wanting to get more communities involved. I unfortunately, for some reason, I missed this email that I got in August until late about doing this. So they will be coming back to us with more material. They want to see how much involvement we want to have. They're tracking the number of towns that they're doing the declaration of inclusion and other programming. There'll be more. I'll have a lot more information when I come back from the town fair on Friday, because a lot of this will be included in this. The letter itself is pretty self-explanatory, but the September 12th date is definitely passed. So they will,
Never.
yeah, well, like I said, I missed the 12th date and then got it off to Scott. So my anticipation will be that I'll have a lot more material I can bring back to give to Scott and for the meetings and stuff. Moving forward. If we do declaration of inclusion, they want to know if we're planning on having an equity or a diversity leader in our committee, in our community. I'm assuming that will be Rockingham, and where that would go. Some committees do have that already. They have appointed someone or hired someone to be their diversity committee leader. So that classes and that sort of thing can be done, trainings for departments as well as board members.
Well, let me ask, if I may, since it came up the last joint meeting from a member of the Saxon River Board, in the interest of diversity and inclusion, should we also have that board on that document as a tri-board document?
They already signed one. You guys have-
Yeah.
We've got one.
Okay.
So they have one on record. We don't. Town and village of as well. No, we never passed
Didn't
one.
pass it.
We talked about it at least a couple times.
Talked about it, but we never passed anything. That's why it's in the packet today. We can take action on this one tonight if you want.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's sitting there, pretty simple and straightforward.
What's in this package is an anti-discrimination policy. Is that what you're talking about?
No,
Those are
no, that's
separate.
another part. That's
That's
actually number
separate.
9.
That's the.
That's actually
personnel
number
law.
10.
That's personnel. I'm sorry, 10. It's personnel rules. Yeah.
Oh.
So that's a separate piece of it. That's different. Scott will address that.
Yes.
I yield.
I had nothing to do with it.
DEI.
So we'll be looking at the inclusion, the declaration of inclusion. If
Is
anyone's read
there,
it.
is there any interest on the board, any of the boards that have not voted or passed the PCI to take action on the
I'd be interested.
instrument that's in the packet?
You do your side first, and I'll do the other side.
I move that we sign the declaration this evening.
Okay, do we hear a second? Second. Made and seconded to take action to sign the declaration of inclusion with one correction, the next to the last item. The town of Rockingham, Falls Falls Village Corporation said is, it should say read, are committed to a place, just a grammar.
So do we have, yes, so then do we have a copy to sign tonight?
We can copy that.
No, I mean, like Scott has the original for us to all sign. Sorry, Richard.
So any discussion on taking action on that? Anyone from the Rockingham Select Board? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor of signing the declaration of inclusion with the aforementioned correction, would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay? Motion carries.
Okay, now village side, is there a motion?
Sure, I'll go ahead, Madam President, and make the motion that the Bellas Falls Village Board of Trustees execute and sign the Declaration of Inclusion of the Village of Bellas Falls.
And a second. Is there any further discussion by the trustees?
I'm
Yes,
just
Dave.
curious, the radical change, I don't, the way I was taught is correct. But
Town of Rockingham and Bellas Falls Village Corporation
because it's the subject
Is.
closest to the,
closest to the, yes.
yeah, and that's a singular. But anyway,
So we're gonna sign it anyway.
I was gonna sign it, we is.
Oh,
That way everybody
is that
can be
a New
angry.
Yorkism? What is that? Is there any further discussion on the item? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, we have that. And so when you're done, it's moving around. When it gets
Get
back,
it back this way.
okay, so there'll be a copy coming around, just sign it, please. All
All
right,
right, let's move on to number 9, the health insurance benefits update. There is a bunch of information in your packet,
And
folks.
that would be- I've actually brought Heather Hitchcock here with me this evening. I don't know how many of you have met Heather. She's been working with us now for a while on a variety of issues, including this one very specifically.
I actually haven't updated.
So
oh my God, more
Same-
paper.
Well, it's the same thing, so you can throw out the other copy.
it's just a little better.
It's only one side, I'm
formatted.
gonna recycle it.
Well,
Pass
I wish
that
I'd double.
I'll give a little background as to how we got here. So part of
Thank
what we've been doing is over the past
You got it done.
year, we've been having exit interviews with employees as they leave and asking just, basically things that were good, things that were bad, and any other comments. One of the comments that were coming back on employees that were leaving the organization was that our benefits package, which we had always used as a selling point, was actually not any longer a selling point, was actually a point of consideration for them leaving. And it really was a point of consideration because of the change from the cost percentages from the old platinum plan to the gold plan. Because what it really did is it increased their total out-of-pocket expenses dramatically. So people were making changes based on one portion of their job satisfaction, which is their benefits package. So we took a hard look at that to try to figure out, are there some things in our package that we could do that might make sense? So looking at it as a recruitment and retention tool, because right now, it's not helping us with recruitment or retention. And that's something, we're struggling with in the marketplace. Obviously, we don't pay wages that are comparable to some of the private sector wages. When I lose somebody in the private sector, I understand I can't compete. I wish them well, and, people go on their way. But some of the other folks that I've lost because of some of our total package benefits, and that's a consideration that I think we need to try to address. So couple of things that have happened since we started this process. Our friends at Blue Cross decided that this was the year that they wanted to come to us with a significant premium increase. So I think you'll notice that no matter what we do, the standstill cost of health insurance are going to increase by, I think it's 11 point some odd percent.
Yes, almost 12.
Almost 12. So standing still, doing nothing, we'll have to see that increase. But we wanted to take a larger look to say, is there a way we can restructure this benefit so that it's not a burden on the taxpayers, because we don't want this to become a huge point of cost beyond what it already is, as well as is it a way to restructure the benefit so it creates a better benefit for the employees and maybe makes this overall a better tool for us as we're going out in the marketplace and trying to compete. Now, we'll never compete with people that offer 100% premium payments, and I don't ever anticipate that we ever will, because I don't think that that's a logical place for us to end up. Some communities do that. In fact, I'm surprised, quite frankly, the number of communities that still pay 100% of premiums. But at some point, I think that ship will sail and people will have to look at some sort of cost sharing with their employees in terms of health insurance. So we never took that particular path into consideration. We don't think it's realistic, and it really doesn't help us, I think, in the long run, try to get to where we want to be. So what we did is we took a look at, based on this change in plans, is there a way that we could restructure our offering, offer the better benefit, look at what the differences might be in costs in relationship to what the out-of-pocket our employees are, what the increased costs might be for the town, and then see, is there a way that we would make some sense to go through and recommend that we at least have the personnel committee take a look and come back to make a decision if we're going to try and make a change prior to open enrollment, which is November. So this is somewhat time sensitive, because if the board even says, okay, go ahead and at least sit down and have a personnel committee meeting, we would have to be able to do that and then come back to the board and adopt something prior to us then starting open enrollment in November. So this is not something that we can, at least if you want to enact something reasonably soon, this would be something you would have to approach fairly quickly. So the bottom line is, based on the recommendation, and we went through a variety of different iterations of this, if you increase the offering to go back to offering a platinum plan as opposed to just stopping at the gold plan, but you change the amount of reimbursement that we were paying people, because as of right now, we are reimbursing people for medical expenses at a higher rate. You could actually, in the long run, give them access to a better plan, a little bit more premium, so the employee would be paying a little bit more, the municipality would be paying a little bit more, but the out-of-pocket expenses for the employee would drop dramatically if they were in fact looking at their overall impact. They would pay less in terms of their max out-of-pocket expenses per year, and they would have a better benefit than what they currently have. So I would think that from an employee standpoint, this would be considered very positive. In order to achieve some of that and make these numbers even reasonably close to break even, one of the things that we would recommend is that you take the current incentive payments, which are 50% of the highest premium available to employees. So if you don't take the insurance, you get a payment of 50% of what that premium cost would be, and change that reimbursement to 40%. And even at that, it's a slight increase in terms of what an actual person who did not take the insurance would actually be receiving. But it would dramatically decrease our total costs. So overall, when you're looking at our current enrollment with that 40% cost share or cost for the incentive plan, the total increase would be $8,663.61 cumulatively, on top of the premium increase, which is already baked into no matter what we do, if we stand right. So that's the premise of where we got here. There's a whole host of different plan numbers, costs per year. What I was hoping to be able to do is at least have the board agree to have this at least go through and have the personnel committee take a look at it And at least then have an opportunity to come back and see if we want to take this forward as we get into open enrollment.
I know from the previous item on the agenda that we deferred, that we're going to be entering union contract negotiations this coming year. The health insurance plan is that part of that negotiation, or is it?
They always come back with that. They always was that. Ray warned me of that a couple of weeks ago, and I informed them we were planning on going forward with the negotiation. He said, that's all I need to hear. Once that hits, they're really gonna come out.
But some of our employees are non-union, right?
Right, some are.
Very few.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that's a real issue in terms of of trying to go ahead on our own without the.
You remember the last iteration, right? When we had the previous change in insurance, it has to be done in enough time so that they have, personnel committee has a chance to review it all.
Right.
This is talking about union members, right? Before
Correct.
November 1, they have to enroll. So they're not going to want to, especially after the last time, to enroll until they really had some chance to look in this very deeply. So we do need to decide if we're going to move forward with the change or stay with what we already have now in order to give them a whole month to have that chance.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that does the town and the village have the right to change the medical plan?
Yes, we do. It's in the, we do have that.
You
You have to
anything to
notify
say
them,
about
though.
it.
You have to notify the union so they can get their 2 cents.
They can't weigh in on this.
They can weigh in.
Sure, they can
but
weigh in,
management has the
absolutely.
right to make the change.
And especially since the overall cost to the employee is actually going to be less than the plans that we're on right now.
Yeah.
So it's actually
That's the part
savings
that I don't
to
understand.
the employee.
You go from the gold to the platinum, it's less.
Well, their premium is going to be a little more expensive, but their total out-of-pocket expenses offset that premium increase.
It's less.
So they end up spending a lot less out of pocket, even with the premium increase.
Now, are you talking about giving the employee the option of the plan, the platinum plan, or making that the plan?
We were discussing making that the plan with the possibility we could actually save more money for the town if we offer the platinum and the silver, but
Right.
not offer the gold. Because there are a few people who are on the silver plan, they tend to be young and single, not all of them, but and not have a lot of medical expenses. So they're willing to pay a lower premium to have a higher deductible and higher out-of-pocket expenses because they're betting that they're not going to have to actually pay those out-of-pocket
No,
expenses.
it's a proven fact. I mean, it makes sense.
So we could save a little bit more by offering the silver plan and then not paying for those people who are on the silver plan and would want the silver plan. We wouldn't actually have to be paying the platinum premium for those people if we offer 2 plans instead of just the platinum.
Okay, so we need a motion to process this to the personnel committee.
I would Yeah, let me make a referral so I can have a chance to go to the personnel committee and then bring it back to the board.
All right, entertain a motion from the select board to do such. We want to make the motion to.
Yeah, I'll move that we authorize Scott to send this to the personnel committee
Right.
for review, to consider
Review and comment.
changing the health insurance plan.
Do I hear a second? Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing or hearing none, select board, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Okay, trustees, so who would like to make the motion to have Scott submit this proposal to the personnel?
I'll make the motion to direct the manager to direct this back to the personnel committee for further review and follow-up comment at a later meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any further discussion on it?
Who's on the personnel committee?
It's you and me, I think. You and me and whoever the other
The
heads of
stewards of the
department.
2 bargaining units, the primary and principal stewards.
Right. And the manager, and the finance director. Okay, so sorry.
Heather?
And you. Okay, so yeah, it's a good sized committee. Yay, more meetings.
I just wanted to be sure I wasn't on it.
And luckily for you, you're not.
Oh,
Like
come
my
on.
place.
We can invite you to the meeting if you'd like. to
No, that's
attend.
okay.
That was the
No?
discussion, okay. Anything further? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None, we're all set. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, we're done with this one. Let's go to the final item on the agenda and pick up the rest after.
That's the other part.
That personnel policy review. There's
So
information in your packet.
since again,
Some
since Heather's
highlighted
been on
changes
board, we've
of
been
language.
working on some of the deficiencies in some of our policies. And again, this would be an opportunity to do a review with the personnel committee and then come back to the boards for update. Our anti-discrimination policy and our harassment policy specifically are missing some significant federal legislation that needs to be incorporated into our policy, as well as changes now in some of the non-conforming gender and identities issues that are impacting folks across the country. And we still have updates that we need to do that relate to that as well, with gender. So again, it would be, I think, helpful if those could also be reviewed by the committee and then come back to both the town and the village boards for updates and approval.
We need a motion to send these back to the personnel committee again. I'll make a motion to.
All right, I move that we send this back to the personnel committee, but I need I have a process question. So at what point do we, the select board, get to comment on this or?
Well, once I have their input, then I bring it back to the boards prior to adoption, so it'll be on your agenda. So it'll be on an agenda for discussion, updating, and then ultimately the boards have to adopt it.
And then will we adopt, what the boards adopt, going back to the personnel committee with their final approval, or?
They don't have final approval. All they have to do is
Oh, it's
advise
safe.
and consent.
Okay.
So
they'll
once
get
we
to
get
see
their information, we'll move ahead. I don't anticipate anything of any major concern, but
Okay, did they get a second from the?
Second.
Okay, second. Motion made and seconded to forward the personnel policies to the personnel committee for review. Any further discussion?
Heather, will you be involved in this?
Yes.
Okay, any further discussion? No? All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
All right, trustees, we need a motion for this as well.
I move that we send the personnel policy to the personnel committee for review.
A second? Did someone second? You did? Okay, Jake's second. All right, is there any further discussion on our side? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None, we're all set. Okay.
Hey, let's go down to review agenda items for the next meeting.
Oh, God, whatever that is.
Probably December, somewhere. January.
It's gotta be
Maybe
December.
January with the holidays and everything thrown out.
We'll probably have some more fire.
The 27th, I think, is no? Yeah, no, it wouldn't be, probably January.
To be determined.
Yeah.
TBD.
Yeah.
It will be in January, so there's time for everybody
Next
to
year. All right.
think up some ideas.
I don't think we had any available warrants.
Okay.
Oh, we did.
We have ordered bills and warrants. Some have been signed, some have not completely signed, so we'll pass them around after we approve. Review and approve orders, bills and warrants. I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve orders, bills, and warrants to circulate.
Wait a second. Second. Motion made and seconded to approve, to review and approve the orders, bills and warrants. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. They're coming around. Yeah.
I'm sure I've started.
Most of them are on trustee.
Yeah.
Other business. Let's start with Sue.
I don't set that.
Ledger? Matt?
Just to note, the Village of Saxon's River meets Thursday night at 6:30. If you want a piece of pizza, come at 6. This is the municipal planning grant originally suggested by the Planning Commission. Gary Fox and I wrote the grant, and the University of Massachusetts is doing a heck of a job. So this is a public participation event, 6:30 at MSA, about the west end of Main Street. So particularly that building between MSA and the post office, but also traffic patterns around the Rotary, the way people pull over and park the wrong way. And if you feel Saxon's River is of importance to you, we'd be happy to have you there.
I am none, Deb.
I only want to say that I'm still in shock about Mr. Pasuko. He was in many ways an icon in our community and involved in so many things, just looking at what we had to do tonight. There are so many places where we would ask his opinion and need his approval and review and that sort of thing. So he's going to be dearly missed. There'll be lots of people at his funeral, I'm assuming. And I'm very sorry for his family.
Wait,
Quick question of the manager, back on the note before,
Yes.
are you using the program through VLCT to get reimbursed for that?
Yes, we are.
Figured you were.
On the
Just want to make sure you get 2 years for free.
We, yes, we do.
anything for free, we'll take it.
Well,
Stefan.
Yeah.
We're good. We're good.
Okay. James?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Rick? Ron? And there's no need for executive session tonight, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second? Motion made second to
All
adjourn.
over the house.
All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
We're out of here, folks. Thank-